The weather's getting warmer, and everybody wants to be outside, even your smart speaker. Crank up your favorite Odyssey stations on your Amazon Echo, Google Nest, or Apple HomePod at the pool or while you're grilling. Get your summer soundtrack from stations across the USA, from top 40 to rock, R&B to country. It's all here on Odyssey. Play your favorite station at your command, hands-free on your smart speaker. Your summer soundtrack is part of a universe of audio on Odyssey.
It's Kevin Sheehan on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.
Are you ready?
Our Window Nation Twitter poll is up. Searching for new windows and doors, search windownation.com. Their windows are measured to fit the first time and installed by experts to last. Window Nation is for your home because it's where you live. Simple question, do you agree with the Jokic ejection from last night's game, yes or no? Nikola Jokic thrown out on a flagrant 2 call that I thought was horrendous. Flagrant 1, yes. Flagrant 2, not only excessive, but wrong. Last night in that game. I know many of you, we've had this conversation. I had this conversation with a couple of you over the weekend about my building up of the NBA playoffs. If you sat and watched the Brooklyn Nets and the Milwaukee Bucks, the intensity of that game was as high as any game that's been played in the postseason so far. It was physical. It was intense. There was blood. There were injuries. And Milwaukee evened up the series 107-96. They won a game on Friday night that maybe they didn't necessarily deserve. It was a super low-scoring game. By the way, the scores in this series have basically been the opposite of what the NBA playoffs have been about, at least the last 2 games. The Friday night game was 86-83. And then you had the 107-96 win for the Bucks yesterday. The key portion of the game was Kyrie Irving rolling his ankle, coming down on Giannis's foot, rolling his ankle. And anybody that's ever played hoops or any sport where you roll ankles, you saw it. The whole thing went and turned inward, and you know that one was painful because it went the whole way. It wasn't a quick one. It was a long duration one. And, it could be typically those are high ankle sprains. And a high ankle sprain, most of you know this, is worse than a break, believe it or not, sometimes. Anyway, whether or not Kyrie Irving will return in this series or not will essentially determine whether or not Brooklyn can win the series. Brooklyn's a better team than Milwaukee fully healthy, and we saw that in the first 2 games even without James Harden. Losing Irving in the game yesterday then put all of the pressure on Kevin Durant. And one of the things in watching Durant yesterday, first of all, P.J. Tucker, who's guarding Durant, is just driving Durant nuts. Tucker is just getting so physical with Durant. And you probably saw the scene with the security guard after the game the other night. But Kevin Durant, unlike most of the true superstars, the true top players in the NBA, Kevin Durant is not a facilitator. He's not capable, in my opinion, as the lone superstar on the floor of winning a game or a series. More importantly, the latter, a series against a good basketball team. Personally, I think Milwaukee at times looks like a mess offensively. They get Giannis. Giannis has to play in an up-tempo game, and he's great once he gets going downhill. Against a set defense, it's typically a disaster. He had 34 yesterday. That was the best game by far in the series for him, and still had a bunch of turnovers and a bunch of missed shots and more missed free throws. I think he's shooting less than 50% from the free throw line in this series. I mean, that's your leading scorer, and his free throw percentage in this series, let me just pull it up because I want to have it exactly right, 30.8%. Giannis is shooting from the free throw line. 30.8%. Not even 38%, which would have been bad enough. But the thing you realize about Kevin Durant, unlike the other superstars, and he's a superstar, there's no doubt, like Kevin Durant's a top 5 kind of player. Some of you might say top 3, top 2 kind of a player. But unlike LeBron or the MVP, Jokic, some of the big guys, even like Embiid, Curry, Leonard. He can't be the facilitator. He has to be the recipient of a player that makes everybody on the floor better. If Durant has to be the guy that draws the doubles and makes the right plays and makes the right passes, and hopefully guys like Joe Harris and Blake Griffin and, Jeff Green's on that team and other guys, this guy Mike James, they've got to make shots, it's over. Durant is not a facilitator. He is the recipient of facilitators. He's a great ISO player when there are other great players on the floor. He is an absolute sniper off of other people's, creations. I'm not saying he can't create for himself. He can't create for others. That's his weakness as a player compared to the other great players in the game. If Kyrie Irving and or James Harden, actually, they need one of them back to win this series. If neither one of them comes back, this series is over. Milwaukee wins it. And I'm not impressed with Milwaukee half the time. It's painful to watch them at times. Antetokounmpo, there was a story written by the guy that does the analytics for ESPN. I'm forgetting his name now. It was a really good story breaking down just the troubles that Giannis was having and how uncomfortable he was and how Brooklyn had made him super uncomfortable in the first 3 games. Well, they got it going in transition a little bit. They got it going, especially when Kyrie Irving got out, and now Durant's forcing up shots and balls are coming off long. But Kevin Durant, I'm watching this game yesterday, and I'm like, man, he's not a good passer when the double comes. The passes are off. They're late. He doesn't see it as quickly. He's got to be on a team with a guy that is a true facilitator. LeBron can be both. I can't stand LeBron, but he can be both. You know what? As crazy as it is, Harden can be both. Kyrie can be both. Kawhi can be both. Curry can be both. Jokic can be both. Embiid, in many ways, can be both. If we're talking about, sort of a list of the top 10 players, top, 11, 12 players in the game. Luka, definitely. Not Durant. Durant is a mess without another great player on the team. Look, he's going to get numbers. He's going to score, but his team's not going to win against a good team in a best-of-7. This series is over if Kyrie Irving doesn't come back or if James Harden doesn't come back and play healthy. And Harden's got the soft tissue hamstring thing, and you got to wonder, even if he does come back, unless he's really been training and playing, how good and how effective he will be. This is stunning to me because after the first 2 games, and I know they were home games, but I didn't give Milwaukee much of a chance at all. And I think that Brooklyn potentially wins the game yesterday if Kyrie doesn't get hurt. And they're up 3-1, and we're not even talking about this. But they didn't, and Milwaukee got 2 at home, and they're confident, and they may be playing a much lesser Brooklyn Nets team, who, by the way, it's just Steve Nash does nothing but roll the balls out there. I mean, he's completely and utterly worthless as an in-game strategist. Had no idea what to do yesterday. But again, part of it was the limitations of Kevin Durant. They came front and center yesterday when Kyrie Irving left that game. He ended up 9 of 25. He was 1 for 8 from behind the arc. He had 28 points. He had 5 turnovers. And I'm telling you, if you watch this game, there should have been 9 or 10 turnovers. Loose balls getting knocked out, turning into jump balls. He looked totally uncomfortable because they forced him to be a decision maker and a facilitator rather than being the guy that took the pass or was ISO'd with other players where you couldn't necessarily run doubles. And he can score against doubles, but he's not going to make a lot of guys a lot better like the other superstars do. It's my opinion. Anyway. All right. The Twitter poll on Jokic. Should he have been ejected last night? I did want to mention, too, that the series that I'm most into is the series that will resume tonight, late night, Game 4 in L.A. between the Jazz and the Clippers. The Clippers were down 2-0. They won Saturday night. Kawhi Leonard had 34. Paul George had his best game by far of this postseason. By far. They won the game 132-106. Paul George had 31, so they combined for 65 points, the two of them. They combined to go, I think, 26 for 48, so they shot well over 50%. And if Paul George, that's the key for the Clippers. Kawhi can do a lot by himself, and they've got some good players on that team, but Utah's the best team they will face, I think, before the finals, although I'm becoming a much more of a believer in Phoenix. But Paul George has to be, the self-proclaimed playoff P like he was on Saturday night. If he is, I think the Clippers come back and win this series. If he isn't, I think Utah wins the series. But Leonard and George were brilliant, and that's what they've looked for. They've got two true superstars on the same team. All right, I want to tell you about Window Nation. Right now, Window Nation wants you to invest in yourself while investing in your home with the deal of the summer. Get a vacation voucher with the purchase of a house of windows from Window Nation. You'll get to go wherever you want to go on vacation. Plus, you'll get 2 free windows with every 2 you buy and pay nothing for 24 months. Look, Window Nation is going to give you the opportunity to do this at no risk. You can get a free estimate, either online virtually, or they'll come into your home following all CDC guidelines, current CDC guidelines, and they will give you a free estimate. You can do with that estimate what you choose. You don't have to act on it right away. I promise you that Window Nation will be a decision you won't regret if you've been looking for new windows. They measure each window 3 times to ensure proper fit. They've installed over 200,000 windows in the last year alone. That's 40 times more than the average window company. 96% of them required no follow-up service. They get it right the first time, and they're always there for you. I promise you that Harley and Aaron, the 2 founders, this is what they've instilled in all of their employees. It's customer first, and they take good care of the customer. I wouldn't endorse Window Nation, and I have been endorsing them for close to 12 years if I didn't have complete trust in them. 866-90Nation, windownation.com. Buy 2 windows, get 2 free, no money down, no payments, and no interest for 24 months, plus a vacation voucher with the purchase of a house full of windows. 866-90Nation or windownation.com. Back next with Mark Murphy's latest mistake in Green Bay. Kevin Sheehan Show, Team 980, team980.com. We're also in the Odyssey app.
It's Kevin Sheehan on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.
Time for the cash code. Every 20 minutes past the hour, beginning now at 7:20 in the morning until 5:20 during Chris and Pete's show this afternoon, it's your chance to win $1,000.
Innovation, resilience, agility. It's how Michigan businesses work together and continue to build the future. Our expertise, talented workforce, and collaborative environment are making a difference now and shaping the future. Join us and make your mark where it matters. Visit michiganbusiness.org/radio to put your plans in motion. That's michiganbusiness.org/radio.
$1,000. Now it's time for the cash code. This hour's code word is GREAT. Text GREAT to 72881 before 8 a.m. for your chance to win $1,000 in the national contest. Message and data rates may apply. Text GREAT to 72881. Mark Murphy. Mark Murphy played for our team. Won a Super Bowl with this team back in 1982, January of 83. Was the starting safety on that team, on that first Super Bowl winning team, Super Bowl 17 team. Was on the next year's team, too, that got blown out by the Raiders. But Mark Murphy, is a championship player for this organization in this town. And for many years now, he has been the team president of the Green Bay Packers. And he is under the gun this summer because of the Aaron Rodgers situation. Green Bay does not have an owner. They're the only publicly traded team in all of sports. And Murphy's been the president and CEO of the Green Bay Packers for the last 14 years. 14 years. By the way, before that, I was looking this up earlier today in anticipation of talking about him a little bit. I forgot that he was the AD at Northwestern prior to taking the job with the Packers. He was also the AD at his alma mater, Colgate, from 1992 to 2003. So for 11 years, he was the AD at Colgate. Then he was the AD at Northwestern for 5 years, and then became the Green Bay Packers president and CEO. Well, if you recall, it was a week ago that he was doing, Brendan, it was like an online fan interaction thing that he does, I think. Something like that.
That sounds right.
And he said that the situation with Aaron Rodgers is dividing the fan base. And, you know, I said on Monday of last week, or whenever it happened, I forget now, I said, you know, really, the conversation about Aaron Rodgers as the president and CEO, it should be essentially, we love Aaron. We want Aaron to play. We have no intention of trading Aaron, and we're working hard to make this thing right. And the high road at every opportunity publicly. And, you know, suggesting that the situation was dividing the fan base was at the very least, making Aaron Rodgers responsible for 50% of the divide of the fan base. Well, over the weekend, he was at some event for the Packers at Lambeau Field. And in talking to the fans that were there, he referenced Aaron Rodgers as a, quote, complicated fella, closed quote, while, by the way, in the midst of addressing the relationship that has gone awry between the Packers and Aaron Rodgers. The context was he was asked about, you know, the latest on Aaron Rodgers, and he said, quote, I'm often reminded, though, of Ted Thompson. As most of you know, just a great general manager, passed away earlier this year. Thompson often talked about Aaron, that he's, and it wasn't just Aaron, a lot of different players. He would say, he's a complicated fella. So I'll just say that, closed quote. Hey, Mark, don't say anything anymore. You're not making this better. If he's so complicated, don't you think he's going to understand that that's another public dig at him? Why would you do that? Why would you publicly make it more contentious? And by the way, didn't he say, Brendan, like a week ago or a week and a half ago, we're not going to address any of this publicly anymore?
Yeah. And then all he's done since is address it publicly.
Yeah, this is Murphy's sense of, our fan base needs to understand that he's as much responsible for this as we are, so we don't get blamed for it. The blame game is for losers. This needs to be a solution-based environment for them, focused on the solution only. And there's no way Mark Murphy is enhancing their opportunity to get Aaron Rodgers back by running his mouth publicly. He's a bright guy. He's frustrated. I'm sure, by the way, I am sure that Aaron Rodgers is a, quote, complicated fellow. We have heard that throughout the years, that he's different. He's not easy. You know, we talked about it the other day. Here's a guy that does not have, he cut off his whole family. He has no relationship with any family members anymore, apparently. Cut him off. Here's a guy that bought a house or two with Danica Patrick. Cut it off. You know, he has moved from one relationship to another over the years. He may be very complicated. You know, he may be one of those dudes that's actually super bright and just completely intolerant of fools. And by the way, I think he probably looks at some of these people in the organization and says, I'm smarter than them. I don't need them to control my fate. It's what a lot of us say a lot of the time, right? Like, you know, you look at management and you say, I don't want those people controlling my fate. Aaron Rodgers sort of seems like he's at that point. He wants somebody gone. At this point, maybe it's Murphy. We've thought it was the GM Gutenkunst, which, by the way, if I'm Murphy, I go to Brian and I say, man, you are a hell of a GM. You've done so much for the organization, and man, do I like you a lot. But in this league up here, as Coach Joe, my Coach Joe once said, and still says, you got to have the elite quarterback. And right now, it's you, and you don't take any snaps during a game, or it's Aaron Rodgers. And even though maybe you're better long-term for the organization, we're going to take our chance that we can contend for 2 or 3 more Super Bowls with Aaron here at the end of his career. See ya. Mark Murphy not making things better. Mark Murphy is too much in the news over the last week and a half. A lot of people didn't even know who Mark Murphy was until the last 2 weeks. Now, Aaron Rodgers in this situation is dividing the fan base. And I love the way, by the way, as part of this quote, he starts off talking about Ted Thompson, the great GM. And Thompson would often talk about Aaron, that he's and then he stops himself because he doesn't want to say that it's just Aaron. So he said, and it wasn't just Aaron. It was a lot of different players. But he would say about Aaron, he's a complicated fella. So I'll just say that, close quote. You said you were going to keep your mouth shut. Keep your mouth shut. Take the high road publicly. We love Aaron. We really want him to play for us. We're doing our best to work it out. You don't say things that can even be taken out of context and made into a controversy. You know, this situation is dividing the fan base. He's a complicated fella. Dumb. Neil in Rockville agrees with me on Mialam Bialik. I keep getting her first name wrong, and I apologize for that, but the chick who was hosting Jeopardy last week or last 2 weeks, who I said was the best out of all of the trial hosts on Jeopardy, I think she was by far and away the best. I thought Anderson Cooper was okay, but what it clearly proved to me over the last month or so since Aaron Rodgers hosted it is he's nowhere near as good as some of the other people that they brought on after him. He was fine, and I'm sure he was good for ratings, but ultimately they're going to pick somebody who can actually do it and do it well. He had very little personality. I just thought he was sort of efficient in the way he was doing it, but she was the best. And Neil said, all I know from the following social media is that it's her job to lose, so he's not going to have that as an option. That would have been the retirement year, right? Head to Jeopardy, host that for a year, see how that goes, make 20-something million bucks. Trebek apparently made $40 million a year. Is that? I still can't believe that. That's unbelievable to me. It is still unbelievable to me that the host of Jeopardy was making $40 million a year. Somebody sent that to me, and I just can't imagine that that's true. I mean, what's the biggest name play-by? Like, what does Jack Buck make? What does Al Michaels make? What does Jim Nantz make?
$10 million a year.
What you think those guys make $10 million a year?
No. I'm seeing Trebek makes $10 million a year.
Oh, you're seeing Trebek makes $10 million. Who sent us the thing that said he made $40 million?
I don't know. This is saying it's like $23,000 an episode.
Okay, I see $18 million a year here. I Googled it as well. Still, what does Joe Buck make? What do Buck, Nantz, and Al Michaels make? I thought it was like maybe $5 million a year.
Buck makes $5 million, and I think Nantz just tried to re-up his contract so he gets paid what Romo makes.
What's Romo making again?
I think it was like 8.
Mm-hmm. And Michaels only has to do Sunday nights, right? That's it.
Yeah. Oh, Nantz just re-upped on a new deal in March, and he's now making $6.5 million a year.
But that's for everything he does, right? Golf and football?
For him, yeah, I think it's golf and football.
Yeah, because Michaels basically does Sunday night football, and that's it. I mean, I'm sorry. Al Michaels does Sunday night football. That's it. He doesn't do any other sports. He used to do, remember, he did the NBA for a few years. He hated it. I think I'm right about that. Michaels doesn't call any other sport. He does one game a week. And that's it. And
it is the highest profile game of the week, if there's anything to that.
No, I understand.
But still, $5 million a year for 17 games.
17 games? Maybe they have they've got the Thursday night opener.
So 18 games?
Yeah, by the way, I think he does the Thursday night opener, between the Bucks and the Cowboys this year. And then I don't even think he's going to work the Sunday night game. I think in years past, when he's done like either the opener or maybe a Thanksgiving, the Thanksgiving night game on NBC, that he then doesn't do the Sunday night game. Because I think they brought in Tirico to do those. I could be wrong about that. But in terms of per game, Michaels has to be the highest. Because Buck does baseball and football. All right. Mark Zuckerman, who covers the Nats for Masson, has a great podcast with Al Galdi and Tim Shovers, is going to help us sum up the weekend that was a 2-2 split with the San Francisco Giants. That's next. Ben Standig for Washington Football Team Talk at 8 a.m. Kevin Sheehan Show, Team 980, team980.com. We're also on the Odyssey app. Bet on more than the final score with One Game Parlay at BetMGM. One Game Parlay is an exciting feature designed to help you make selections within a single game from over 400 bet types, including team and player props. Log into your BetMGM account and create the parlay of your dreams before the game even starts. One Game Parlay is fast and easy. It allows you to make your bets fast and easy on same game win, total, and prop picks. New to BetMGM, sign up today and be on the edge of your seat the entire game. You can make One Game Parlay bets on upcoming MLS and NBA games, with more sports coming soon. Go ahead and take your favorite player to score, the home team to cover, and the over and points for the star power forward. Log in today or download the BetMGM app. Try One Game Parlay. Turn game time into showtime at BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. Must be 21 or older. DC and Virginia only. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700.
It's Kevin Sheehan on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.
3-2 pitch, swung on, hit in the air, center field, playable for Robles to his right. He's there, and he makes the catch to retire the side. 8 shutout innings for Joe Ross, who gets a standing ovation for the Nationals fans on the first base side as he heads to the Nationals dugout.
One of the best pitching performances, maybe I'm exaggerating, we'll ask our next guest, of Joe Ross's career. 8 complete, 5 hits, no runs, no earned, 9 strikeouts, did not walk a batter in the Nats' 5-0 win over the Giants yesterday, which included in the first 2 innings 2 Kyle Schwarber home runs. The Nats split with the Giants over the weekend, but they also lost Max Scherzer. We'll get to that in a moment. Mark Zuckerman is our guest. Mark, of course, covers the team for Masson. He also co-hosts with Al Galdi, Tim Shovers, the Nats Chat podcast, which gives you a post-game show for the Nats, which you can get on their podcast anywhere you get a podcast. So am I exaggerating? That had to be one of Joe Ross's best efforts, if not the best of his career.
Yeah, I think it was the best start of his career. I mean, he'd only gone 8 full innings 2 other times, and those 2 previous times he gave up a couple runs in those starts. So this is the first time he's gone 8 scoreless. Like you said, didn't walk a batter, struck out 9. So, I mean, all of that, would tell you that it probably was the best. And then I think the context of it, at the end of a weekend in which, like you said, they lost Max Scherzer, they are still without Steven Strasburg. They had burned up all of their bullpen because of the Scherzer game on Friday, because of a doubleheader Saturday. So, I mean, they needed him to give them the innings yesterday. And so under all that context, yeah, that was a huge performance, the best of his career. Now they just hope he can do it again, because that's the thing with him, is that you see these glimpses and say, yes, he can be a good major league starting pitcher. Just like Eric Fedde, you see glimpses of it. They just need to start showing it consistently, and that's going to be their path. If they are going to turn this thing around, those guys who are supposed to be their fifth and sixth starters, but now are being pressed into more significant duties because of the other injuries, they're going to need them to be that good to help lead them the rest of the way.
Well, Fedde had an outstanding game as well. In fact, the last two outings for him have been phenomenal. They've been two shutout wins. I know the game on Saturday was, the doubleheader game that they won 2-0, the 7-inning game, but he was brilliant in that game. And I think it was either the start before or two starts ago that he was outstanding against Arizona as well.
Yeah, it was the previous start. The problem is this previous start was 4 weeks earlier because he had landed on the COVID IL, and that was frustrating to everybody because he was vaccinated and never even got sick, and he wound up missing 4 weeks as a result. So, yeah, I mean, the way those two guys have stepped up here is huge, and they're going to need it because we don't know when Strasburg's coming back. Corbin has not looked anything close to his old 2019 form. John Lester, is clearly not the John Lester of his prime. So they need it, and they've been waiting for years for these two guys, and at times people have wondered why do they keep putting them out there? It's never going to happen. Well, this is why, because there's a reason they were so high on them all along. They know there's something in there. It's just a matter of them putting it together and now doing it every fifth day.
Talking to Mark Zuckerman. All right, give us the update on Scherzer, who left after, early in the first inning the other night.
Yeah, so he left after only 12 pitches Friday night. He felt something in his groin, but he was confident that it was not a full-scale muscle, strain or anything like that. They got the MRI. It didn't show anything like that. So yesterday he played catch on the field. He talked to me and Chelsea James from the Washington Post, and the key is today he's going to try to throw a bullpen session. And if he can do that, then he can start Wednesday against the Pirates. But he admitted if he can't do that, and he'll know today whether it's going to work or not, then he is going to have to go on the IL. And he believes it would just be a short trip, miss one start, that's it. He knows this isn't a serious injury, but he also knows it's the kind of thing you can't just try to pitch your way through it because that could lead to bigger problems. And, the groin is something he feels like he needs to be able to push off the mound, and throw the way that he's used to. So there was a little bit of doubt in his voice yesterday as he was talking to us, so I would not be shocked if he does have to miss a start, for the good of the long term, and make sure he's not doing anything that's going to cost him a lot of time. But they'll give it a shot today, and we'll know probably this afternoon whether he's going to be good or not for Wednesday.
What's the latest on Strasburg?
Not much. He is not throwing. He's going to be seeing another specialist, trying to figure out what's going on in his neck and come up with some kind of treatment plan for him. I mean, I said at the time, they're just not going to put him back out there until they know what it is, until they've figured out how to get him healthy again. And it may be a while until that happens. It's just not worth it. Obviously, he's got 5 more years of him, so you don't want to just force him out there and have him try to pitch in a diminished version of himself, which is what we've seen here so far. And it's frustrating. It's agonizing to everybody. I know Steven himself is, agonized by it all, but they've got to get this right. I mean, clearly there's been something going on for a while here. It seems to affect everything, the shoulder, the mechanics, all that. I mean, there's some kind of nerve issue in his neck causing all this. They just need to find the root problem of it and figure out how to treat it. The good news, I guess, is that you can say this isn't like a rotator cuff or a labrum or an elbow injury. This isn't some kind of clear structural problem with his arm that's going to require surgery. It's just more of this nagging thing that's affecting him. So in the long run, you hope that means he's going to be okay, but I don't think they put him out there until they have a much clearer idea of what's going on, and I just don't think they're going to force this issue at all.
I want to go back to Saturday's second game, the 2-1 loss to the Giants. It actually was sort of an exciting day of baseball, having the park have significant numbers of people in it. And that game was a dramatic game, went to extras scoreless. The Giants get 2 in the top of the 8th. Just reminding people that these split doubleheaders are 7-inning affairs. So the 8th was the first of the extra innings, which starts with a runner on second. The Nats are down 2-0. They get a Castro double to score Gomes. It's 2-1. Robles gets hit by a pitch, and they're off and running. They got a shot to an easy shot to tie the game, and if not win it in the 8th. And then Robles, tags up on Bell's, flying out to center and just makes a boneheaded base running error. It's not the first time for him either. That had to be so frustrating for everybody involved because they had a runner on third because Castro tagged up easily, made it to third. You got 1 out, a sac fly is going to tie it. How do you make that mistake in that spot?
It was so frustrating to everyone because on top of all that, and this is where Davey Martinez had a long talk with him to explain to him, it's not just about trying to make it to second base and whether that was worth it or not. You have to know the situation. Who was coming up? Trey Turner and Juan Soto. And by getting himself thrown out, a sac fly is no longer going to tie the game. And essentially he prevented Juan Soto from batting in that game, or he made it so that it wasn't guaranteed that Soto would get to bat. And so if this had been an isolated incident, it's the first time it's happened, you have a talk with him and you shrug it off, but it's not, like you said, the first time. He has done this kind of thing more than once, and they had a long talk. I know there were people who were saying, well, he's got to bench him on Sunday. That wasn't going to happen. That's just not Davey's style, and I think this wasn't a mistake of a lack of effort. It was over-aggressiveness, and it's a guy, and we've seen this with some other players on the team too. They know how much this team is struggling to score runs, and they're just trying too hard to make something happen that's not there. And they've got to relax. They've got to just understand the situation, play smart, know who's coming up. So they had a long talk. I thought Robles had a good game yesterday. A nice bunt in a good spot that he reached on. He singled. It looked like he made a great catch in center field. It turned out the ball had just barely bounced off the wall before it went in his glove, but the effort was still tremendous. So, we have to remember he's 24 years old. He is still learning, and he should know better at this point. He's been in the big leagues long enough, and you get annoyed by the fact that he seems to make the same mistake more than once. But you just hope that eventually he figures that kind of thing out and that he can become the player they expect him to be. He just has not been anything close to it from an offensive standpoint. Thankfully, he's still playing great defense.
I thought it brought up, and I happen to have been watching, as the game went into extras, I thought it brought up a really, interesting strategic situation. Soto was batting second in this game. We've talked about that in previous visits with you on the air. With first base open, if Soto's not in the 2-hole, they probably walk Turner, and you get whoever's hitting second to bat. But with Soto sitting there on deck, they had to pitch to Turner with 2 outs rather than fill the open base. I thought that was an interesting spot there. And if anybody wants to make the case that Soto should get more at bats and move him up in the order, it actually worked out in that particular instance, although Trey Turner didn't come through.
Yeah, no, that's the reason why he has them batting side by side, so that you do have to pitch them. Now, the interesting thing, it would have been really bold by Gabe Kapler, but the way Soto's been struggling a bit, would they have actually walked Trey Turner to load the bases? Right now, the bases loaded with Juan Soto at the plate is like the worst situation for the Nationals. It happened yesterday. They grounded into another double play. For whatever reason, that situation has killed them this year, and Juan's been a big part of it. He's still not really looking like himself yet. I don't think it would have gone to that. That would have been really extreme. But there's an argument that maybe that would have been a better shot for the Giants if it came to that.
What, in that particular spot, you're saying with Castro on third, 2 outs, right, nobody else on, to walk Turner and then to also walk Soto to load him?
No. Well, no, I was saying if Robles hadn't run into the out.
Oh, yeah.
So it's first and third, then to walk Turner and actually load the bases with 1 out.
That's right.
So, I mean,
but if Robles hadn't made the base running error, he's on first and first base isn't open. He wouldn't have tagged up.
Right. So, I don't think any of that would have actually happened. But the thought occurred to me because, for whatever reason, the bases loaded has been such a problem. And Soto has actually been less of a threat here lately than some other guys.
We're talking to Mark Zuckerman. Follow him on Twitter at Mark Zuckerman. Listen to his Nats Chat podcast with Al Galdi and Tim Shovers, wherever you get a podcast. And read him. He does, I think, the best recaps of every Nats game. So before I get to sort of the big picture right now through, through 61 games, so basically a third of the schedule, you said something about Eric Fetty that I want to go back to. I just made a note to myself. He was fully vaccinated. You said he got COVID, and he was off 4 weeks? Why was it so long?
Well, this is like the worst-case scenario of everything that could go wrong went wrong. So, yes, he was vaccinated. He tested positive, never had any symptoms. So the rule still is you have to go into quarantine for 10 days. So he did that. And then the problem is now that you've missed 10 days, as a starting pitcher, you have to build your arm back up. It's like going on the injured list, and you can't just necessarily come right back. So he had to throw a simulated game.
He can't throw in quarantine?
No, he was not allowed
by himself?
to leave he was not allowed to leave the apartment. No. Mm-hmm. And that's part of the problem as well. And look, everybody with the team was really annoyed by this. Max Scherzer spoke out pretty forcefully about it, saying that he does not believe that should be the rule, that somebody who has been vaccinated and is clearly not sick at all should not be required to miss time like that. And so he had to make a simulated game, and then he was going to make a rehab start for the single-A team in Wilmington. It got rained out twice, and it just kept getting pushed back. And so it wound up being 4 weeks. And, it is something the MLB's got to really look at here. And maybe, this won't be an issue for much longer. Hopefully there are more cases of guys testing positive even when they're vaccinated. But there's got to be a little more common sense here. He was not a danger to anybody. He should have been allowed to interact with somebody in that situation to allow him to stay in shape. He basically couldn't do anything for 10 days. Part of the time he was stuck in Chicago because they were on the road when he found out about it. So just getting him home to D.C. was a problem. At
the very least, the quarantine should be lessened that he can stay in shape with somebody who's fully vaccinated.
Right.
That seems logical to me. I'm curious if this information has been revealed yet, because Ron Rivera revealed it about his football team, in follow-up to the Montez Sweat comments last week about the vaccination. He said that, they're, roughly 50% of the team's vaccinated. Do you know what percentage of the Nationals are vaccinated?
Yeah, they're over 85% now. They've met the Major League Baseball threshold that they've been allowed to ease up their restrictions. So that's a good thing, too. And that's another reason that you say, well, why should Fetty have to do all this if the team as a whole now has reached that kind of plateau? And, it's been a struggle for a lot of teams. I think it's more than two-thirds of teams now have reached that threshold. There's still some holdouts. The only reason we know that Fetty was vaccinated because Max sort of outed him. I think Eric was okay with people knowing. But the flip side of that was we then learned, probably against his will, that Tanner Rainey had not been vaccinated because he was the close contact to Fetty and had to go into quarantine himself. Now, here's the bizarre part. So the guy who wasn't vaccinated, he didn't get sick, never had any symptoms, never tested positive. He got to come back sooner. Yeah, he got to come back about a week later.
That's funny. All right, last one, and I'll let you run. We're still over a month away from the trade deadline, but there's already been a lot of conversation about Max Scherzer and the potential of him being made available. Obviously, it's too early now, right? They were 19-31 and won the World Series, and they're 7.5 back. They're not 17.5 back at this point. There are teams like the Orioles who I think are like 17 or 18 games out of first. The Tigers are terrible. I think the Diamondbacks are terrible. The Nats happen to be in a very competitive division, but without a great team, it would appear at this point. What do you think that they'll be thinking, what do you think they're thinking now, and do you think there is a chance that they become an active seller?
What they're thinking now is they've got about 3 weeks to turn it on and show everyone that they don't need to be in that position to have to consider trading Max or other guys. I think that this is a critical stretch for them. At some point, they do have to turn it on. I know they're not, falling that far behind, but they really haven't gone on any kind of significant winning streak this year. So they need to go win, 7 out of 10, something like that, to kind of get themselves in the mix and get them back close to 500, and then they don't have to worry about this. If they can't do that, you're going to hear the chatter pick up even more over the next month as they get into July. So, with Scherzer, of course he's going to be attractive for a lot of teams out there, but it's a complicated process if they do decide to trade him. First of all, Mike Rizzo has to get an offer from somebody that he believes is worth it, trading away your franchise icon. And remember, he'd be a 2-month rental because his contract is up. So how much are you getting? Are you getting 2 elite prospects in return for him? I don't know if you are. You may not get that. Teams are more reluctant to part with prospects now than they used to be. So first of all, he's got to get an offer that he thinks is worth it. Then he has to get Max's approval because he has what they call 10-5 rights. He's been in the big leagues 10 years and the last 5 with the same team. So he has no trade right. He can turn down any deal if he doesn't want to go somewhere. So there's that. And then after all that, you still have to get ownership to approve it. And if you're Mark Lerner, are you saying, yep, we need to tear this down, we need to rebuild, and it may be a struggle for a couple of years here as we try to become a contending team again? Or are you saying, boy, Max Scherzer, every 5th day he takes the mound is a big day for us where we matter. Even if the team's not good, fans care, we're getting people in the stands, we're relevant. This is going to be the first player to go into the Hall of Fame wearing a curly W cap on his plaque. Maybe you don't want to really do that from a PR standpoint, from a business standpoint. So there's a lot of complicating factors there. They all hope they don't find themselves in this spot, but even if they do, there's a lot they're going to have to figure out, and a lot of people are going to have to be on the same page if it ends up happening.
Well, you talked about like the next 10. They're playing a horrible team right now in Pittsburgh for the next 3 nights at home. They've got to win that series, and then they've got crucial games against the Mets and the Phillies. If people aren't paying attention, the Phillies have gotten super hot here recently. I think they swept the Yankees. I think they swept the Yankees over the weekend.
Yeah, they did. Now there's pressure on the Yankees.
Yeah. Thanks as always. Best of luck with the podcast. Nats Chat with Galdi and Zuck. And Tim Shovers is a part of that. It's basically the best post game after each one of these games, and you can get it anywhere you get a podcast. I'll talk to you soon. I appreciate you getting up.
Okay, thanks, Kevin.
Mark Zuckerman, everybody. Ben Standig will join us next. We'll talk Washington football. Kevin Sheehan Show, Team 980, team980.com. We are also on the Odyssey app.
Sometimes a single click on the internet can change your life forever. I'm Elle Fanning, and welcome to One Click, a documentary podcast series that investigates a lethal diet drug that has managed to reappear time and again with a trail of death behind it. Listen and follow One Click, a presentation of C13 Originals, a Cadence 13 studio, in association with Vespucci and Llewellyn Pictures. Available now on Odyssey, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
For the ones who know safety isn't a catchphrase, it's a culture. And the ones who help make sure everyone makes it home safe. For the safety-minded who watch everyone's backs, Grainger offers supplies and solutions for every industry, as well as safety assessments and training to keep your facilities safe and your people safer. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.